Imagine a world divided not by walls but by sound, a musical Cold War. At its heart stood Brahms and Wagner, two giants whose rivalry split classical music in two. Their followers battled in concert halls and cafes, fiercely defending their chosen master. It was a clash of tradition versus revolution, consuming the hearts of music lovers across Europe. Who were these two men at the center of this musical hurricane? Wagner, born in Leipzig in 1813, was a revolutionary composer, poet, and theater director. Driven by ambition and scandal, he built the Bayreuth Festspielhaus for his monumental operas. In contrast, Brahms, born in Hamburg 20 years later, was private and modest, devoted to absolute music, symphonies, concertos, and chamber works, inspired by Bach, Mozart, and Beethoven. Where Wagner broke rules, Brahms found freedom within them, crafting music of lasting beauty and depth. The core of the conflict can be heard in the music itself. Listening to Wagner and then to Brahms is like visiting two entirely different worlds. Wagner's music is a surging, endless ocean of sound, full of passion and myth. Then you turn to Brahms and the landscape changes completely. Order, structure, and deep emotion. Brahms's music is built on classical logic, with themes you can hum and heartfelt feeling. Two visions, two worlds, each claiming to be the true future of music. Richard Wagner was more than a composer, he was a phenomenon. Driven by ambition and radical ideas, he saw himself as a cultural savior, ready to redeem art and society. Wagner believed music should serve a higher purpose, fusing drama, myth, and philosophy into something new. His overwhelming personality divided audiences. Some saw a genius, others a dangerous charlatan. But love him or hate him, Wagner's revolution changed music forever. At the heart of Wagner's revolution was the Gesamtkunstwerk, meaning total work of art. Wagner believed music, poetry, drama, and design should fuse into one seamless whole, with no single element dominating. He took control of every detail, writing, designing, directing, even building a custom opera house, so the audience would be completely absorbed in his mythic world. Wagner's revolutionary ideas demanded a completely new musical language. The neat, balanced phrases and predictable harmonies of earlier music simply could not support the weight of his epic dramas. So he invented a new sound. A key innovation was what he called unendlich melody, or endless melody. Instead of writing tunes that came to a clear end, allowing for applause, Wagner wove a continuous, seamless tapestry of sound. The music flows like a great river, rising and falling with the dramatic tension, never stopping to rest. It pulls the listener along, denying them the comfort of a full stop, creating a constant state of suspense and emotional engagement. This never-ending flow was built upon a radical new approach to harmony. Wagner pushed the boundaries of tonality to their breaking point. He used extreme chromaticism, meaning he used all the notes on the keyboard, not just those belonging to a particular key. This made the music harmonically ambiguous and unstable. The opening of his opera Tristan und Isolde, with its famous Tristan chord, is a perfect example. The chord hangs in the air, unresolved, filled with a sense of yearning and desire that is never satisfied. This was music that mirrored the complex, often contradictory inner states of his characters. It was the sound of psychological drama made real. To give structure to this vast ocean of sound, Wagner perfected the use of the leitmotif. A leitmotif is a short musical idea, a melody, a chord progression, a rhythm that is associated with a specific character, object, emotion, or idea in the story. For example, in his Ring cycle, there are leitmotifs for the sword, for fate, for the hero Siegfried, and for the ring itself. These musical signatures are not just labels, they are active participants in the drama. They can be transformed, combined, and recontextualized to tell a story on a purely musical level, revealing characters' hidden thoughts or foreshadowing future events. It's a complex symphonic web woven throughout the entire drama. This musical language was utterly groundbreaking and to many deeply shocking. Critics accustomed to the clarity of Mozart or the formal elegance of Brahms's contemporaries heard only noise and chaos. They called it formless, tuneless, and monstrously loud. But for Wagner's admirers, this was the sound of the future. It was a language capable of expressing the inexpressible, of diving deep into the human psyche. It was music that didn't just accompany the drama, it was the drama. Wagner had not just broken the old rules, he had written a completely new rulebook, and its impact would resonate for generations to come. Wagner's revolution needed a home. He dreamed of a theatre dedicated to his vision, free from compromise. In Bayreuth, Germany, he built the Festspielhaus, a temple for his new musical religion. Its design was radical, a fan-shaped auditorium, hidden orchestra, and a darkened house to focus the audience. The first festival in 1876 drew emperors, kings, and music lovers from around the world. Bayreuth became a shrine, a temple for Wagner's revolutionary art. While Wagner built his empire, Johannes Brahms quietly worked in Vienna, becoming the reluctant king of tradition. Born in poverty in Hamburg, Brahms learned discipline playing piano in rough dockside bars. He lived under Beethoven's immense shadow, feeling the weight of that legacy. Though never seeking the spotlight, Brahms became the champion for absolute music, fighting with notes, not words. At the heart of Brahms's world was a belief in absolute music, instrumental music that isn't about a story or character, but finds meaning in its own melodies and forms. For Brahms, this was the purest art, music for music's sake, needing no words or drama to convey emotion. He poured his genius into symphonies, concertos, and chamber music, defending the timeless power of pure sound. What does a world, according to Brahms, sound like? It's a world of rich autumnal colors and deep feeling held within a perfectly balanced structure. Where Wagner's music is a surging river, Brahms's is like an ancient oak, solid, complex, deeply rooted. He favored the lower registers, cellos, violas, horns, giving his music a noble, melancholic sonority. Brahms was a master of developing variation, transforming simple ideas into organic, unified masterpieces. His rhythmic complexity and intellectual rigor make his music both challenging and exhilarating. Brahms' sound is emotion controlled by intellect, a breathtaking fusion of tradition and innovation. Vienna, the grand city of music, became Brahms's adopted capital, a counterweight to Wagner's Bayreuth. Unlike Bayreuth's cult-like festival, Vienna's musical life thrived in institutions like the Vienna Philharmonic. Eduard Hanslick, a powerful critic, championed Brahms, seeing him as the embodiment of absolute music. Vienna was a battleground, not a pilgrimage site, with concerts as arenas for conflict. Brahms' symphonies sparked cheers and hisses, reflecting the city's divided loyalties. Brahms, though aloof, was central to Vienna's conservative musical world. His presence linked Vienna to Beethoven's legacy, opposing Wagner's influence. Vienna became a fortress for Brahms's ideals of structure and musical purity. The city buzzed with debates, making allegiance to Brahms a statement of artistic worldview. Brahms's role was inescapable, as Vienna's musical life revolved around him. In the musical Cold War, words were the most powerful weapons, wielded by critics like Eduard Hanslick. Hanslick, a staunch advocate for absolute music, saw Brahms as a modern messiah. He praised Brahms's music for its structural integrity and controlled emotion. Hanslick's reviews were declarations of war against Wagner's New German School. He criticized Wagner's music as chaotic and formless, attacking its excesses. Wagnerians retaliated, painting Hanslick as a blind, pedantic fossil. Wagner immortalized Hanslick as Beckmesser, a foolish critic in his opera. Hanslick became a soldier in the battle of words, his reviews echoing across Europe. The conflict was not just academic, it was a war of ideologies. Hanslick's battlefield was the printing press, where he fought for musical purity. Concert halls became arenas of conflict, with audiences divided into factions. A performance was a political rally, not just a chance to hear music. Brahms's premieres sparked cheers from supporters and hisses from Wagnerians. The applause was an act of defiance, a statement of allegiance. Wagner's operas faced similar hostility outside Bayreuth. Brahmsians attended, ready to pass judgment with silence or derision. Arguments broke out, sometimes escalating into physical altercations. The music was secondary to the tribal conflict it inspired. Conductors became heroes or villains based on their allegiances. The concert hall was a proxy battlefield for Brahms and Wagner's armies. The rivalry forced composers to choose sides, shaping their careers. The musical world fractured into two ecosystems for artistic development. Wagnerians embraced program music and opera, seeing themselves as progressives. Brahmsians found inspiration in absolute music and classical structures. Dvorak, championed by Brahms, fit neatly into the Brahmsian aesthetic. Some composers, like Richard Strauss, were influenced by both masters. The conflict was the defining question of their time. Every new piece of music was an answer to the Brahms-Wagner war. The rivalry was not just for critics and audiences, it pulled in composers. The war between Brahms and Wagner shaped the future of music. The Cold War extended to conservatories, shaping future musicians. Institutions aligned with either Brahms or Wagner influencing education. Leipzig emphasized Brahmsian tradition, focusing on classical forms. Vienna, under Hanslick's influence, revered past masters. Wagnerians, led by Liszt, established Weimar as a beacon for new ideas. Students were encouraged to break old rules and experiment. The division created a lasting schism in musical education. Musicians emerged with ingrained allegiances and prejudices. The battle lines were etched into the foundations of education. The conflict ensured the Brahms-Wagner rivalry would outlive them. Wagner and Brahms met only once, in a polite, cordial encounter. Brahms admired Wagner's early operas, showing him his Handel variations. Wagner acknowledged Brahms's skill, but saw it as talent wasted on old forms. Brahms respected Wagner's genius, studying his operas intently. He separated art from ideology, acknowledging Wagner's achievement. The war was not between the men, but the worlds they represented. Wagner thrived on conflict. Brahms preferred solitude for composing. They were like planets on different orbits, never destined to collide. The real collisions happened among critics, conductors, and composers. The meeting highlighted the true nature of the Cold War, a clash of ideologies. When the dust of the 19th century settled, the rivalry between Brahms and Wagner left a lasting legacy, a fork in the road for Western music. Composers who followed had to choose: the revolutionary path of Wagner, pushing boundaries and emotion, or Brahms' path, building on tradition and form. This split defined the musical landscape, with every composer orienting their creative compass between these two magnetic poles. The shadow cast by Richard Wagner stretched far and deep into the 20th century. His influence was immediate, powerful, and, well, inescapable. The composers who followed his path took his harmonic innovations and pushed them to their absolute limits. Gustav Mahler, for instance, created vast symphonic worlds that were indebted to Wagner's orchestral scale and emotional intensity. His symphonies are epic journeys, filled with cosmic grandeur and deep psychological turmoil, often incorporating voice and text in a way that directly echoes the Wagnerian ideal. Mahler's music is in many ways the next logical step after Wagner, a continuation of the quest to make the symphony an all-encompassing expression of life itself. Another direct heir was Richard Strauss, who, after his early Brahmsian phase, became the leading post-Wagnerian composer. His tone poems like Also Sprach Zarathustra and his shocking operas like Salome and Electra are filled with Wagnerian leitmotifs, immense orchestral forces, and a rich chromatic language that explores the darkest corners of the human psyche. Strauss took Wagner's dramatic and harmonic language and applied it to new, often provocative subject matter. He proved that the power of Wagner's musical engine could be harnessed to explore modern psychological states with terrifying and thrilling effect. The revolution, it turned out, was far from over. The most radical consequence of Wagner's legacy, however, came from the Second Viennese School, led by Arnold Schoenberg. Schoenberg began his career writing lush romantic music deeply influenced by both Wagner and Brahms, as seen in his early work, Verklärte Nacht. But he felt that Wagner's intense chromaticism had pushed traditional harmony to its breaking point. If all notes were becoming equal, why pretend a home key even existed? This question led him, step by logical step, to abandon tonality altogether and develop the 12-tone system, a new way of organizing music that treated all 12 notes of the chromatic scale with equal importance. It was the ultimate conclusion of the path Wagner had started. In this sense, Schoenberg and his pupils, Alban Berg and Anton Webern, were Wagner's most extreme descendants. They took his revolutionary impulse and followed it to its final destination. The complete dissolution of the harmonic system that had governed Western music for centuries. This atonal music, often perceived as dissonant and difficult, was a direct result of the harmonic instability that Wagner had unleashed with the Tristan chord. His quest to express ever more intense emotion had led, generations later, to a complete reinvention of music's fundamental language. Wagner's long shadow had ultimately led to a place he himself would never have recognized. While the Wagnerians were loudly breaking down the old world, Brahms' influence worked more quietly but just as profoundly. He became a beacon for composers who believed that the future of music did not require a total rejection of the past. His legacy was one of synthesis, of romantic feeling fused with classical discipline. He demonstrated that traditional forms were not dead ends, but were in fact fertile ground for new growth. This idea, often called developing variation, the constant transformation of a small musical cell, became a cornerstone of musical modernism, a principle that would be championed by none other than Arnold Schoenberg, who famously penned an essay titled Brahms the Progressive. Schoenberg, the great Wagnerian revolutionary, saw in Brahms a different kind of progress. He admired Brahms's incredible compositional technique, his rhythmic complexity, and his ability to create vast, unified structures from the smallest melodic fragments. This showed Schoenberg that progress was not just about shattering old forms, but also about achieving a new level of coherence and logic within them. In this surprising twist, the leader of the modernist avant-garde crowned Brahms, the supposed conservative, as a true innovator whose structural genius was as forward-looking as Wagner's harmonic experiments. The battle lines, it seemed, were beginning to blur. Brahms's influence is also clearly felt in the work of composers who sought to maintain a connection to tonality and symphonic tradition in the 20th century. Figures like the Finnish composer Johann Sibelius created powerful, structurally innovative symphonies that feel like organic growths, their logic derived from the Brahmsian principle of developing variation. The music of the English composer Edward Elgar, with its noble lyricism and masterful orchestration, carries a clear echo of Brahms's autumnal warmth and emotional sincerity. These composers and many others proved that one could write music that was both modern and deeply rooted in the great symphonic tradition. Even into the later 20th century and beyond, Brahms' model of intellectual rigor combined with emotional depth has continued to inspire. Composers of the neoclassical movement in the 1920s and 30s, who turned back to the clarity and balance of 18th century forms, were working in a spirit that Brahms would have understood perfectly. He provided a powerful alternative to the Wagnerian path, an anchor of stability and craftsmanship in a century of chaotic change. He proved that tradition was not a museum of relics, but a living stream, a source of strength and inspiration for those who knew how to draw from it. The rivalry between Brahms and Wagner was never truly a choice. Composers soon realized they could learn from both. Their musical streams merged, blending Wagner's drama with Brahms's structure. Schoenberg's Verklärte Nacht is a perfect example, uniting both worlds. Later, Berg and others built bridges between old and new, drawing freely from both. Today, we celebrate both Brahms and Wagner as pillars of music, their rivalry enriching us all. Why does the rivalry between Brahms and Wagner still fascinate us? It was more than a personal feud, it was a battle between revolution and tradition, heart and head. Their passionate conflict still echoes in concert halls and in our hearts today. It reminds us that music can be a vital force worth defending and arguing over. In the end, both sides were right. Music needs both revolution and tradition to truly thrive. The rivalry between Wagner and Brahms gives us two visions of art and life. Wagner, the revolutionary, bending the world to his will, and Brahms, the humble craftsman, finding greatness in quiet dedication. Their lives ask us, Do we change the world with bold rebellion or create beauty through patient mastery? There's no easy answer, only inspiration in both paths. The greatest legacy of this musical Cold War is the music itself. Today we're free to enjoy both Brahms and Wagner. No need to choose sides. We can be swept away by Wagner's mythic power, or find solace in Brahms's depth and beauty. Their rivalry gave us two worlds of sound, revolution and tradition. We just have to listen.